But you know, any deadline is only as good as the level of commitment that goes with it, because a deadline with no commitment behind it is just going to put you in greater frustration than if you'd never made that deadline to begin with. Now, the commitment could take several different forms. It could be a commitment to yourself. It could be a commitment to God. It could be to another person. But there has to come that sense of ownership and commitment that goes with that deadline to make it work. I know a while back I had a project that I was just plain procrastinating on. This thing just was not getting done. And so my wife came into the office one evening and she noticed that I had taken my belt off and I had wrapped one end of it around my ankle. I put the other end of it around the leg of the table where I was working. She saw that and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm chained to this desk and I'm not getting up till this thing gets done." And you know what? Thing got done that night, because it was just a simple little way of saying, I'm committed, I'm not stopping until this thing is finished. Now, sometimes, though, you got to do even more than that. You got to make a cheese Danish out of it. Let me explain that one, or you might not understand. Back several years ago, I had a work situation where I was working out of my own home, setting my own hours, and I'd get up, I'd get working pretty good about 8 or so, but maybe about 2 or 3 hours later, about 10 or 11, I might get a little bit restless. I'd get a little fidgety, you know? And I'd start thinking about these cheese Danish pastries down at the Winn-Dixie Deli. How many of you Northerners know what a Winn-Dixie is? See your hand. Okay, you got a few of you traveled down south. Well, that's the big grocery store down there. And I'd start thinking about these little cheese Danish down there at the Winn-Dixie. They were these little Danish pastries that had a little squirt of cream cheese right in the middle of them. And those things were really, really good. And I'd think, you know, if I'd run down there to Winn-Dixie, buy me one of those cheese Danish, I believe that's what I need to kind of give me a little pep and zip and energy to get on through the morning. And so I'd go down there and I'd buy one of those things, and I'd stand outside the store, you know, and I'd start to eat it. But then a friend of mine would come by and we'd start talking, or maybe I'd decide to stop by the library on the way back and check up on the headlines before I went back to work. And before I knew it, my morning was gone, and I had not produced what I set out to produce that day. Well, now, this became such a recurring pattern in my life that I started realizing that this little cheese Danish down at the Winn-Dixie Deli was actually controlling my schedule, controlling my life. And I said, you know what, this is really dumb for me, a grown man, to live under the control of a pastry. And so at that point, I made a commitment to God. And I said, God, as long as I live, I will never eat another cheese Danish. And you know what, folks? That has been, I believe, over 20 years ago. But I want you to know that from that day until this, I have never eaten one single cheese Danish. And here's my point. It's not a problem anymore, because the level of commitment was so strong that day that it completely erased any possibility in my mind that I could ever, under any circumstances, eat another cheese Danish. And here comes the point. When the commitment is there, the freedom will follow. So, maybe you got something you've been procrastinating on for a long time. Maybe some bad habit. Maybe whatever it is, just say, I'm going to make a cheese Danish out of this thing today. Today is the day. I go no further with this thing. And again, when the commitment is there, the freedom will follow.